The great chamber of the Galactic Council was meant to inspire calm. Soft blue light came from the walls. The air was clean and smelled of nothing. The seats were made to fit many different kinds of bodies. Today, the feeling in the room was not calm. It was fear. Representative Hale stood up to speak. He was from the Zirthani people. He looked like a tall, thin bird made of gray feathers and long bones. His face had two large black eyes. When he was nervous, the feathers on top of his head moved. Right now, they were standing straight up. "The news from Meridian Prime is very bad," Hale said. His voice was like a soft whistle. "The insurgents have taken the main city. They have control of the planetary defense grid. They can shoot ships from the sky." A low sound went through the room. The defense grid was powerful. It was why the Council's own peacekeeping ships could not get close to help. A second being stood. This was Commander Borv. He was a Gron. The Gron were strong and wide, with thick green skin and 4 arms. They were known as good soldiers, but Borv looked tired. His 4 shoulders were slumped. "My legions are on the ground," Borv said, his voice a deep rumble. "We are stuck. We cannot move forward. The insurgent leader is a Gron. His name is Kral. He was once a great warrior in our own army. He knows all our ways of fighting. He is not afraid to die. He laughs at our threats." A third being joined them. This was Scholar Vlin of the Veln. The Veln looked like small, hairless mammals. They were famous for their logic and intelligence. Vlin adjusted his glasses. "Our analysis agrees," Vlin said in a quick, sharp voice. "Diplomacy has failed. Kral's demands are impossible. He wants full independence for the planet and all its resources. He will not talk anymore. Military force from the outside is blocked by the grid. Force from the inside is failing. It is a perfect deadlock." The last of the main speakers was the Mir representative. Her name was Alara. The Mir were quiet, with gentle faces and large, kind eyes. They could feel the emotions of others just a little bit. She did not stand. She sent her thoughts directly to the speakers in the room. Her soft voice filled the air. "The fear on the planet is very strong," Alara said. "Kral feeds on it. His people are afraid of him, but they are more afraid of us. They believe we will burn their world to save it. This belief makes them fight harder. There is no peace here." The council was quiet. This was the worst kind of problem. A strong enemy in a strong place who could not be reasoned with. Every species looked at each other. No one had an answer. Then, from a quiet seat at the far end of the round table, a woman stood up. She was human. Her name was Sumin. She wore a simple, dark suit. Her black hair was tied back. Her face was calm. "The United Earth government would like to offer a solution," Sumin said. Her voice was clear and steady. All the eyes and sensors in the room turned to her. The humans were new to the council. They were clever and full of energy, but they were also young. They had only traveled the stars for a short time. What could they do? What solution? Hale asked, his feathers twitching. "More soldiers? We have legions of soldiers. They are stuck." "Not more soldiers," Sumin said. "A specific tool. We ask for permission to send one special forces team. A single team of 5 humans. They can end this standoff." Commander Borv made a grunting sound. It was the Gron way of laughing. 5? 5 humans? Against Kral and his 5,000 fanatics? This is a joke. Your humans will be killed before they land. Sumin did not get angry. She nodded. "That is a fair concern, Commander. But this team is trained for problems like this. They are not a normal army. They work in a different way. They can solve the problem with very little damage. They can take the defense grid offline and secure Kral. Without destroying the city. Without a big battle." Scholar Vlin leaned forward. "Explain their method. What technology do they use?" "Their main tool is their mind," Sumin said. "They are experts in observation, in movement, in patience. They will find the one weak point in a strong wall. They do not break the wall. They simply open the door no one else saw." Alara, the mirror, was watching Sumin closely. "Their emotions, what will they feel? Anger? A desire for battle? Sumin looked at Alara.
No.
They will feel focus. Their job is a task to complete. Nothing more. The council members talked among themselves. Their voices were worried. They did not believe. But they also had no other plan. The people on Meridian Prime were suffering. Every day the standoff continued, more people died in small fights. Finally, Representative Hale spoke for the whole group. We have no other choice. We will allow this experiment. But understand, Ambassador Sumin, the council will be watching. If your team fails or if they make the situation worse, the consequences will be serious. Our trust in humanity will be broken. Sumin bowed her head slightly. That is understood. Thank you for the chance. I will contact my people now. The team will arrive by tomorrow. As she sat down and began to type on her small computer, the other representatives looked at each other. They felt a mix of hope and deep worry. They were not worried about the humans being too weak. They were worried about sending 5 beings to their deaths. It seemed like a sad and tiny effort against a huge problem. No one in the room, not even the logical Veln or the emotional Mir, understood what they had just agreed to. They thought they were sending a small key for a small lock. They did not know they were about to see a master locksmith who did not need a key at all. The main docking ring of the council station was a busy place. Ships from many different species came and went. There were big, round Veln science ships and strong, blocky Grand troop carriers. There were elegant Zirthani sail ships that moved with no sound. Everyone was used to seeing these shapes. So when the new ship arrived, no one paid much attention at first. It was not very big. It was about the size of a small cargo shuttle. Its shape was sharp and angular, like a black piece of stone broken from a cliff. It had no bright lights. Its color was a matte, non-reflective black that seemed to drink in the light from the docking bay. It moved without a sound on its maneuvering thrusters. It slid into its assigned dock with a precision that was almost boring. A perfect, quiet stop. A small group was waiting in the observation gallery. Ambassador Sumin was there. So were the main council members from the meeting. Hale, Borv, Vlin, and Alara. They watched through the large window. That's it, Commander Borv said, his forearms crossed. It looks like a rock. Where are the weapons? The shields? It is too small. Scholar Vlin adjusted his glasses. Its engine signature is very faint. Interesting. It is built to be quiet, not to be seen. A stealth approach craft. Logical, but of limited use once detected. The side of the black ship opened. Not a large door, just a small hatch. A ramp slid out and touched the deck. The first human stepped out. He was not very tall for a human. He wore a close-fitting, dark gray uniform. It was not flashy armor. It looked practical. He had a calm, lined face and black hair cut very short. His eyes scanned the docking bay slowly, taking everything in. He did not look impressed or afraid. He looked like he was checking a list in his head. This was Jihoon. He was followed by 4 others. A woman with a serious expression and her hair in a tight braid. She carried a simple data slate. This was Eun Kyung, a taller man with a focused look, his head moving slightly as he noted the positions of doors and cameras. This was Min-suk, a broader man who moved with a solid, steady pace, his eyes on the ship and the dock systems. This was Tae-won. Finally, a shorter woman whose eyes were quick and missed nothing. She walked last, her head on a quiet swivel. This was Hygiene. They carried bags, not big weapons. The bags were the same dark gray as their clothes. They walked down the ramp in a loose group, but they were not casual. They were aware of each other's positions without looking. They stopped near Sumin and the council members. Jihoon gave a small, polite nod. Ambassador, I am team leader Jihoon. We are ready for the briefing. His voice was quiet. It was not a deep, commanding boom. It was just a voice. Sumin nodded back. Welcome. These are the council representatives overseeing the situation. Jihoon turned and gave the same small nod to the group of aliens. Honored, he said. He did not salute. He did not bow deeply. It was simple respect, nothing more. The council members were confused. They expected warriors. These people did not look like warriors. They looked like quiet technicians. Representative Hale fluttered his crest. "Your team is only 5?" he whistled. "Yes," Jihoon said. "5 is enough for this task." Commander Borv stepped forward, looking down at Jihoon. "Kral is a giant. He has 4 arms. He can lift one of you with one hand. His hide is tough. Your energy weapons will need many shots to hurt him." Jihoon looked up at Borv. His face did not change. "Our mission is not to fight him arm to arm. Our mission is to stop him. These are different things." Alara, the mirror, was staring at the humans. Her face was pale. She was sensing them. She expected to feel hot, sharp emotions. Anger. Excitement for battle. Bride. She felt nothing. Or not nothing, but something very still. It was like looking at the surface of a deep, cold pond. There were ripples of focus, of attention. But no fire. It was unsettling. She took a small step back. Scholar Vlin spoke. "What is your plan? You must share your tactical approach." Unkyung, the woman with the data slate, answered. Her voice was clear and direct. "Our plan requires the most recent sensor maps of the compound, its power use logs, and the duty rosters for Kral's guards for the last 7 days. We will make our plan from that." Vlin blinked. "Duty rosters? You want to know when they sleep? We want to know their patterns," Unkyung said. "All people have patterns." The team did not wait for more questions. They followed Sumin out of the docking bay and toward the command center. They walked without talking. Their boots made soft sounds on the floor. They did not look at the strange sights of the station. They looked at the path ahead, the corners, the doorways. In the command center, the main screen showed Meridian Prime. It showed the city and the strong fortress where Kral was. The place was covered in guns and guards. The human team gathered around a terminal. Unkyung connected her data slate. Images and lists of numbers flowed across the screen. The 5 of them watched. They did not speak for a long time. Minsuk pointed at a part of the wall on the screen. "This section. The sensor sweep here is slow. There is a blind spot for 12 seconds every 3 minutes. It is a pattern in their system." Taewon nodded, looking at the power grid schematic. "Their backup generator cycles on every 4 hours for a test. For 90 seconds, the main shield has a slight drop in power. Not enough for a ship to shoot through, but enough for other things." Hygiene studied the guard patrols. "The night shift leader is lazy. He takes his group to the same warm spot every night at the same time. He is away from his post for 8 minutes." They spoke in short, simple sentences. They were not making a grand plan. They were finding small, quiet holes. They were finding mistakes. Jihoon listened to them all. He then looked at the main screen at the image of the fortress. "We will go in tonight," he said. "During the generator test. We will use the blind spot in the wall sensor. We will move during the night leader's break. We will be inside before anyone knows." He said it like he was planning a walk in a garden, not an attack on the most dangerous fortress on the planet. Commander Borv, who was listening, shook his big head. So many ifs. If one small thing is wrong, they will see you and kill you. Jihoon finally looked at the Grand Commander. For the first time, there was a tiny change in his calm face. It was not a smile. It was just a look of simple understanding. "Commander," Jihoon said, "that is our job, to make sure nothing goes wrong." He turned back to his team. They started to prepare their equipment. They took out tools, not weapons. Small drones, grappling hooks made of a dark fiber, silenced communication sets. They checked each thing with care. The council watched. Their earlier worry was changing into a new, strange feeling. These humans were not what they expected. They were not loud heroes. They were quiet workers. And there was something about that quiet work, that total focus on small details, that felt more serious than any war cry. The warriors they knew were like thunderstorms. These humans were like the slow, steady drip of water that cuts through stone. And no one knew what to think about that. The black ship, the Whisper, fell toward Meridian Prime. It did not fall fast and loud like a rock. It fell slow and quiet like a leaf in the dark. It entered the night side of the planet. Below was only black land and the single bright spot of Krall's fortress, glowing in the middle of the sleeping city. Inside the ship, the 5 humans were silent. They wore their full suits now. The suits were a flat, dark gray. They had no shiny parts. They did not reflect light. Each person sat still, checking the small screens on their wrists. The only sound was the quiet hum of the ship systems and the soft whisper of air moving. On the council station, the command center was also quiet. The main screen showed 2 pictures. One was a blurry sensor image from the council's own satellites. It showed the tiny dot of the whisper against the dark planet. The other picture was a clear, sharp video feed from a camera on Ji-hoon's suit. The council members watched this second picture closely. They saw what Ji-hoon saw: the back of the ship's cabin, the calm faces of his team. "The atmosphere is thick with ionized particles," Scholar Vlin said, looking at his own data screen. "Our satellite sensors cannot see details. We are mostly blind. We must rely on their feed." Commander Borv grunted. "A perfect night for an ambush. But they are the ones walking into it." Representative Hale's feathers were flat with nervousness. "They are so very small." Alara the Mirror did not speak. She watched the human faces on the screen. She felt the echo of their minds. It was still that strange, deep calm. A focus so sharp it was like a physical thing. In the whisper, a soft tone sounded. Ji-hoon looked up. "1 minute," he said, his voice quiet in the helmet. The team stood up. They moved to the rear hatch. They did not rush. Each movement was smooth and sure. The hatch opened. There was no ramp. There was only roaring, black wind. They were very high up. The ground was not visible. They stepped out into the night. The council watched through Ji-hoon's camera. The view tumbled, then steadied. They saw the curve of the planet against the stars, and far below, the tiny pinprick of light that was the fortress. The humans were in freefall. They did not scream. They did not make excited sounds. They fell in a tight formation, their arms and legs held still to control the fall. The only sound was the low howl of the wind. "This is madness," Hale whispered, closing his large eyes. "They will be smashed on the ground." But they were not. At a certain point, small wings made of a dark fabric snapped open from their backs. The wings were not for flying. They were for guiding. The humans stopped falling fast. Now they were gliding, silent and unseen, toward the dark land outside the fortress walls. The camera view showed the ground coming up, dark and rocky. The landing was a soft roll, then stillness. In less than a minute, all 5 were on the ground, their glide wings packed away into their suits. They were now a black spot on a black landscape. "Remarkable accuracy," Vlin said, making notes. "Their landing point is exactly 3 kilometers from the western wall, outside the standard patrol perimeter." The humans did not move from their landing spot. They lay flat on the cold ground. For a long time, nothing happened. The camera view from Ji-hoon showed only rocks and dirt and the distant wall. "What are they doing?" Borv asked, impatient. "They should move. Patrols will come." "They are watching," Sumin said softly. She had been quiet until now. "They are learning the night." For over an hour, the humans did not move. They watched the fortress through small scopes. They listened. They saw the guard patrols walk the walls. They saw the searchlights move in their patterns. They noted the times. They saw the places where the light did not reach. Finally, Ji-hoon spoke, his voice a murmur in the helmet. "Pattern is confirmed. We move in 10. Follow my path." He began to crawl, not on his hands and knees, but flat on his stomach, using his elbows and toes to push himself forward. He moved incredibly slow. He moved from one shadow to another, from one rock to the next. The other 4 followed him, one by one, each in his exact path. They were like 5 shadows sliding over the ground. The council watched, mesmerized. It was boring and terrifying at the same time. It took them 40 minutes to cross a distance a Gran could run in 1 minute. But not one alarm sounded. Not one guard looked their way. They reached the very base of the fortress wall. The wall was high and made of thick stone. A searchlight passed over the spot where they lay. The council members held their breath. The light passed over. It did not stop. The humans' dark suits seemed to drink the light. They were invisible. Tae-won, the broad man, moved forward. He took a small tool from his pack. It was a gripper with strong claws. He looked up at the wall, finding cracks between the stones. He began to climb. He did not use ropes. He used the small cracks. His movements were slow and careful. He made no sound. He climbed like a careful insect. He reached the top of the wall, peeked over, then slid back down just as slow. He returned to the group. "Two guards on the west tower," he whispered. His voice picked up by the suit microphone. "They are looking out, not down. They are bored. The patrol passed 3 minutes ago. Next one in 7.
Yihon nodded.
Go." Tae-won climbed back up. This time, when he reached the top, he slipped over the edge and was gone. A moment later, his voice came back. Clear. One by one, the others climbed. Min-suk went next, then Hae-jin, then Eun-kyung. Ji-hoon went last. On the wall, they crouched low. They were inside the fortress. The council screen showed the new view from Ji-hoon's camera. They were on a walkway behind the wall. They could see the inner compound. They could see buildings and parked vehicles. They could see groups of guards walking below, talking and laughing, unaware. The humans did not attack. They did not move toward the main building. Instead, they slipped off the walkway and into a dark, narrow alley between two storage buildings. They stopped again. They became still. They were waiting once more. "It has been 3 hours," Borv said, his voice loud in the quiet room. "They are inside. Why do they not strike? What are they waiting for?" Sumin looked at the big Gron. "They are waiting for the right moment, Commander. Not the first moment. The perfect moment. They are making sure they understand everything. They are being patient." "Patience is not a weapon," Borv grumbled on the screen. Eun-kyung was looking at her data slate. The light from the screen lit her face in a soft glow. "The power generator test cycle is in 22 minutes, she whispered. Ji-hoon gave a single nod. "Then we wait. And we watch." So they waited. The camera did not move. The humans did not move. The council was forced to wait and watch with them. They saw the ordinary life of the fortress go on. They saw the carelessness of the guards. They saw the patterns of habit and boredom. They saw what the humans saw. Not a mighty fortress, but a place full of small holes, of tiny mistakes, of human weaknesses. And for the first time, the council members began to feel a cold understanding. The humans were not fighting the fortress. They were simply slipping through the cracks that were already there. The real weapon was not a gun or a bomb. It was seeing what everyone else had missed. And the waiting, the endless, quiet waiting, was the hardest part to watch. The waiting ended without a signal. One moment, the 5 humans were shadows in the alley. The next, they were moving. It was not a rush. It was a silent, coordinated flow. They knew exactly where to go. Eun-kyung looked at her data slate one last time. "Generator test in 60 seconds, she whispered into the comms. Ji-hoon gave a hand signal. 2 fingers pointed forward, then split apart. The team divided. Tae-won and Hae-jin went left, toward a low, humming building, the power substation. Ji-hoon, Eun-kyung, and Min-suk went right, toward the main command bunker where Kral was. The council watched the screen split into 2 views. One followed Ji-hoon. The other followed Hae-jin. Hae-jin and Tae-won moved to the substation wall. There was a heavy door with a light above it. A single guard stood there, leaning on his rifle, looking sleepy. Hae-jin pointed to a pipe running up the wall to the roof. Tae-won nodded. He made a cup with his hands. Hae-jin stepped into his hands, and he boosted her up. She grabbed the pipe and climbed, silent as a spider. She disappeared onto the dark roof. Tae-won waited. He picked up a small stone and tossed it into the shadows to the left of the guard. The guard frowned, straightened up, and took 2 steps toward the sound to investigate. That was all Tae-won needed. He crossed the open space in 3 long, quiet strides. Before the guard could turn back, Tae-won was behind him. There was no dramatic strike. One arm wrapped around the guard's chest, pinning his arms. The other hand placed a small patch on the side of the guard's neck. A light on the patch blinked once. The guard's eyes widened for a second, then closed. He slumped. Tae-won caught him and gently lowered him to the ground, pulling him into the shadows. The whole thing took less than 10 seconds. On the roof, Hygiene was at a ventilation hatch. She used a small tool to loosen the bolts without a sound. She slipped inside. The view from her camera showed a room full of machines and blinking lights. A technician was sitting in a chair, looking at a screen. He did not hear her land softly behind him. She moved forward, another small patch in her hand. He sensed something started to turn. The patch touched his skin. His head nodded forward onto the console. He was asleep. Hygiene went to the main control board. I'm in. Controls are standard. Beginning the override. Her fingers flew over the buttons. She plugged her data slate into a port. Lines of code scrolled down her screen. The generator test is starting. Now. A deep hum filled the building, then changed pitch. The lights in the substation dimmed for just a second. In the command center on the station, Scholar Vlin leaned forward. The fortress shield. Its power reading just dropped by 15%. A tiny window. Not for a ship, Sumin said. For a signal. On her screen, Hygiene finished her work. Primary power grid is now on a closed loop. Backup generators are isolated. They think they are still online, but they are not. On your command, we can take all non-essential systems offline. Meanwhile, Ji-hoon's group had reached the command bunker. It was a heavy, round building with a single large door. 2 alert Grand Guards stood outside, their 4 arms holding big plasma rifles. These were not sleepy. They watched everything. Min-suk had split off from Ji-hoon. He had climbed up to a high perch on a water tower. He lay flat, looking down through the scope of his long rifle. His view was a magnified circle on the screen. It rested on the 2 guards. We are in position. Min-suk's calm voice came through. I have the shot. Do not fire, Ji-hoon said softly. Wait for the distraction. Eun-kyung was crouched beside a small utility box on the ground. She opened it. Inside were communication cables for the fortress. She attached a small device to several wires. Comms jammer is ready. Localized burst on your mark. It will only affect a 20-meter radius around the bunker door. It will sound like static to them. Ji-hoon looked at the door, then at the 2 guards. He looked at the small, high window on the 2nd level of the bunker. It was dark. The window is our path. Min-suk, on my mark, you will hit the light pole to the east of the door. Not the guards. The pole. Understood. Eun-kyung. Burst the comms on my mark. Ready. Ji-hoon took a deep breath. Mark. 3 things happened at once. Min-suk's rifle gave a soft puff of air. Almost silent. 100 meters away, the tall light pole near the bunker door sparked and went dark with a sharp crack. The same moment. Eun-kyung pressed a button. The 2 guards at the door clutched at their helmet comms. One pulled his off, shaking it. Static. I can't hear command, he growled to the other. The 3rd thing was Ji-hoon moving. While the guards were distracted by the dark and the dead comms, he ran, not toward the door, but toward the wall under the dark window. He didn't slow down. He stepped onto a small ledge, pushed off, and grabbed the bottom of the window frame with one hand. It was a smooth, powerful motion. With his other hand, he placed a small disc on the window. There was a quiet shhh sound, and the thick glass turned white, then fell inward in a solid, silent sheet. He caught it and lowered it to the floor inside. He was in. The council watched, stunned. It was not fighting. It was a magic trick. A series of perfect actions that made a locked building open. Ji-hoon's camera showed a dark hallway. He was in an upper storage room. He could hear voices below. He moved to the door, opened it a crack. The hallway was empty. He slipped out. Eun-kyung's voice came. I have their internal security feed. Sending you the map. Kral is in the central room. There are 4 guards with him. A small map appeared on the edge of Ji-hoon's screen. He saw a blinking dot for himself and a red dot for Kral. He moved down the hall. He was inside the heart of the enemy fortress. He was alone, and he was walking without any hurry at all. Commander Borv was gripping the edge of the console, his forehands making the metal creak. He is walking into a room with 5 Gron. He will be torn apart. But Ji-hoon did not go to the central room. He went to a side door marked Climate Control. He went inside. The room was warm and full of pipes. He went to a large vent on the wall. He removed the grate. He looked inside the dark metal duct. He is not going to fight. Alara the Mirror said suddenly, her voice full of understanding. He is not going to them at all. Ji-hoon slipped into the vent. It was a tight fit. He crawled forward. On his map, he saw his dot moving through the walls, getting closer and closer to the red dot. He was not using the doors. He was using the veins of the building itself. He stopped above a new grate. Below, he could hear a loud, rough voice. It was Crawl. He was laughing about something. Ji-hoon peered down. He could see the top of Crawl's big, green head. He could see the 4 guards standing around a table. Ji-hoon reached into his pack. He took out 5 of the small sleeping patches. He attached them to small, weighted darts. He loaded them into a tiny, handheld launcher. He took a slow, quiet breath. He aimed the launcher down through the grate. Then he fired. 0.5 soft sounds. 5 small darts flew down and found their marks. One stuck to the back of each guard's neck. One stuck to Crawl's thick shoulder. The guards flinched, slapping at their necks. What was? One began. Then his eyes rolled back. He fell to the floor with a heavy thud. Another fell, then another. Crawl roared, standing up, knocking his chair over. He grabbed at the dart on his shoulder. Treachery, he bellowed. But the drug was fast. He swayed. His 4 arms waved, trying to grab the table for support. His legs buckled. He crashed down like a falling tree. The room was silent. Ji-hoon pushed the vent grate out. It fell onto the carpet with a soft thud. He dropped down into the room. He stepped over the sleeping bodies of the guards. He stood over the huge, sleeping form of Crawl, the warlord who had defeated armies. Ji-hoon took a pair of strong restraints from his belt and secured Crawl's 4 wrists together. He then tapped his comms. Targets secured. All guards neutralized. No casualties. The fortress is yours. In the council command center, there was only the sound of breathing. No one spoke. The fight was over. The most dangerous warlord in the sector had been defeated. And it had not been a fight at all. It had been a quiet, surgical procedure. The storm had come and gone in a whisper, and the silence it left behind was more terrifying than any battle cry. The fortress did not fall into chaos. There was no alarm because the humans had never triggered one. The guards outside the command bunker were still annoyed by their broken comms and the dark light pole. They had no idea that inside, their leader and his personal guards were sleeping on the floor. Ji-hoon stood in the quiet room. He looked at the giant, sleeping form of Crawl. He did not smile in victory. He did not kick the fallen warlord. He just made sure the restraints were secure. Then he walked to the main command console. He pressed a few buttons, found the right channel. This is Ji-hoon of the United Earth Special Operations. The insurgent leader Crawl is in custody. The defense grid is under our control. All units stand down. Repeat, the conflict is over. Stand down and you will not be harmed. His voice was calm. It was not a shout of triumph. It was a simple announcement, like a pilot telling passengers about the weather. The message went out through the fortress speakers and through the comms that Hygiene had just restored. All over the stronghold, guards stopped. They looked at each other, confused. Was this a trick? In the substation, Hygiene's voice came on next, clear and firm. This is confirmed. Primary and backup power systems are under our control. All weapon systems are offline. You cannot fight. Lay down your weapons and assemble in the main yard. This is your only warning. The view from the council screens shifted between cameras. They saw the confusion on the faces of the insurgents. Some looked angry. Some looked scared. Some just looked tired. They were warriors without a war, suddenly and quietly disarmed. The big door to the command bunker slid open. The two guards outside spun, raising their rifles. They expected an army. They saw only Ji-hoon. He stood in the doorway, his hands empty at his sides. He had taken his helmet off. His calm, lined face was lit by the dawn light now creeping over the walls. "Your leader is safe and sleeping," Ji-hoon said to the guards, his voice still quiet. "The fight is over. You can put your weapons down." The first guard growled, his finger on the trigger. "You are one man. I will burn you down." Ji-hoon did not flinch. He just looked at the guard. "If you do, my teammate on the water tower will ensure you never fire again. But you do not have to die today. No one does. You fought well. Now it is time to rest." The guard's eyes flicked up, searching the towers. He saw nothing. But the certainty in Ji-hoon's voice was a weapon all by itself. The second guard, younger, let his rifle dip toward the ground. "Is it true?" he asked. "Is Krall captured?" "He is sleeping," Ji-hoon repeated. "He will wake up in a cell. You can wake up in a cell too, or you can wake up in a medical bed. The choice is simple." The first guard's shoulders slumped. The anger went out of him. It was replaced by a deep confusion. This was not how it was supposed to end. There was supposed to be a glorious last stand. Not this quiet talk in the morning light. His rifle clattered on the ground. The second guard placed his down gently. In the command center on the station, Commander Borv was staring, his four hands limp at his sides. He just talked to them," Borv mumbled. "He talked, and they surrendered." Scholar Vlin was typing furiously. He presented them with a logical choice. He removed the emotional reason to fight, glory, vengeance. He reduced it to a simple, practical decision. Survive or do not survive. Extraordinary. On the ground, Eun-kyung and Tae-won moved through the compound now. They directed the disarmed insurgents to the yard. Min-suk watched from his high perch, his rifle ready but unused. Hygiene controlled the gates, letting the first of the council's peacekeeping troops enter. The Grand soldiers in their heavy armor marched in, expecting a battle. They found a quiet fortress and rows of sitting, disarmed enemies. They looked almost disappointed. The peacekeepers entered the command bunker. They saw Krall on the floor, snoring loudly. They saw his 4 personal guards also sleeping. They saw Ji-hoon, who was now drinking water from a small bottle. The Grand captain in charge walked up to Ji-hoon. He looked from the tiny human to the giant, sleeping warlord. "You did this? All of you?" Ji-hoon capped his bottle. "My team did it." He put up no fight. There was no fight to have. The captain did not know what to say. He ordered his men to carry Krall away. Soon, the sun was fully up. The human team regrouped at the Whisper, which had landed quietly in the main yard. They were packing their gear back into the ship. They spoke little. They looked tired, but not the tired of someone who has fought hard. They looked like doctors after a long, successful surgery. Ambassador Sumin's voice came over their comms from the station. "The council is impressed. They wish to speak with you when you return." Ji-hoon nodded, though she couldn't see it. "Understood. We are ready for extraction." Before they boarded, Hygiene stopped. She saw the young insurgent guard who had surrendered first. He was sitting with the others, looking lost. She walked over to him. She held out a small silver packet. "Here," she said. "It is a nutrient bar. You look hungry." The young Gran looked at the packet, then at her. He took it slowly. "Why?" he asked. "Why are you not angry?" Hygiene thought for a second. "Anger is not a tool. It is a distraction. My job was to end the problem. The problem is ended." She gave a small nod and walked back to her ship. The young Gran stared at the silver packet in his hand. He had expected conquerors who would shout and hit. He had found people who were so sure of their victory that they could afford to be kind. It was the most confusing thing of all. The Whisper lifted off, its engines a quiet hum. It rose through the morning sky and disappeared. Back in the fortress, the cleanup began. The Council's forces counted the weapons. They checked the prisoners. They found no dead. Not a single being had been killed. The only injuries were a few bruises from when the guards had fallen asleep and hit the floor. The Galactic Council members were still in their command center. The screens now showed peaceful scenes from the planet below. But no one was looking at the screens. They were all looking inward, trying to understand what they had just seen. They had witnessed warriors, yes, but not warriors who were more terrifying because they were strong. They were more terrifying because they had no need to be strong. They had won without ever really fighting. And that changed everything. The return to the council station was quiet. The black ship, the Whisper, slipped into its docking port with the same silent precision as before. The hatch opened. The 5 humans stepped out. They had changed back into their simple, dark gray uniforms. They looked clean. They looked ordinary. If not for the faint lines of tiredness around their eyes, they could have been coming back from a routine training exercise. Ambassador Sumin met them. She did not smile broadly. She gave a slow, deep nod of respect. "The council is waiting," she said. "They have questions." Ji-hoon returned the nod. "We will answer them." They walked through the clean, bright halls of the station. Other species moved out of their way, but not out of fear. They moved out of a new, uncertain curiosity. News traveled fast. The story of a fortress falling without a shot fired was more strange than any tale of great battle. The council chamber doors opened. The room was the same as before, but the feeling was completely different. The air was not tense with a problem. It was thick with a need for understanding. Representative Hale, the Zirthani, was the first to speak. His feathers were lying flat, a sign of deep thought. "You have done what we believed was impossible. We must know. How? What is your secret?" Ji-hoon stood before them, his team behind him in a loose line. He did not stand at a stiff attention. He stood easy, his hands clasped behind his back. "There is no secret," Ji-hoon said. "We observed. We planned. We executed the plan." Commander Borv leaned forward, his forearms resting on the table. "But you did not fight. Kral is a beast of war. He has crushed armies. You put him to sleep like a child." Ji-hoon looked at the Grand Commander. Fighting him was not the objective. Containing him was. The easiest way to contain a dangerous animal is not to poke it with a stick. It is to put a wall around it while it sleeps. Scholar Vlin adjusted his glasses. "Your analysis of their patterns was exceedingly thorough, but your willingness to act on such small details, a lazy guard, a power cycle, a 12-second blind spot, it implies a profound tolerance for risk." Eun Kyung spoke from behind Ji-hoon. Her voice was clear. "It is not a tolerance for risk. It is a calculation of certainty. We do not rely on one small detail. We link many small details together into a single path. The guard's laziness gave us a time. The power cycle gave us a moment. The blind spot gave us a place. Alone, each is nothing. Together, they are a road. We only walk the road when all the pieces are certain." Alara, the mirror, had been silent, her large eyes fixed on the humans. Finally, she spoke, her voice softer than the others. "I felt your minds. I expected fire. I expected the hot storm of a warrior's heart. There was none. There was only winter calm, the calm of a deep, frozen lake. How can you do such violent work without the violence inside?" Min-suk answered this time. He had been the one lying still for hours, looking through a scope. "The work is not violent. The action can be, but the work is not. The work is solving a problem. If you make it about anger or pride, you make mistakes. You rush. You miss the small details. We leave our anger at home. We only bring our focus." The council members looked at one another. These were not the answers they expected. They expected talk of superior technology, of secret weapons, of genetic enhancements. They were getting philosophy. Representative Hale whistled softly. "You make it sound so simple. Like a craft." "It is a craft," said Taewon, the man who had climbed the wall. "It is the craft of seeing what is really there, not what you expect to see." Everyone saw an impenetrable fortress. We saw a building with cracks in its routine. We just went through the cracks. Commander Borv shook his great head. But your way, it has no honor. It is sneaking. It is tricks. Jihoon's eyes met the commander's. There was no challenge in his look. Only patience. What is the honor in a bomb that kills 100 to stop one man? What is the honor in a battle that destroys a city to save it? Our honor is in the result. No one died today. Not your soldiers. Not their soldiers. The city is intact. The problem is gone. Where is the dishonor in that? Borv had no answer. In his culture, honor was in facing your enemy, in testing your strength against theirs. This was something else. It was not less. It was different, and it was clearly more effective. Scholar Vlin tapped his datapad. Your methodology is a superior application of minimal force theory. It is logically impeccable, but it requires a psychological discipline my species finds difficult. To be that patient, to have that control. Hygiene gave a small shrug. It is just training, like learning a language. You learn to be quiet. You learn to listen. You learn to move only when the time is right. The council fell into a long silence. They were realizing the truth. The human's weapon was not a thing. It was a mindset, a terrifyingly calm, patient, and utterly pragmatic mindset. They didn't overcome their enemies with greater fury. They made their enemies' fury irrelevant. They changed the game so that strength and rage were useless. Sumin finally stepped forward. You asked for a demonstration, honored council. You have seen it. This is a tool humanity offers. Not for every problem, but for the problems that seem to have no solution. Representative Hale gathered himself. We have seen it, and we must consider what it means. For our security protocols. For our understanding of conflict itself. He looked at the 5 quiet humans. You have given us much to think about. You are dismissed. And you have the thanks of the council. Jihoon and his team gave one more small, synchronized nod. They turned and walked out of the chamber. Their footsteps were soft on the floor. They did not talk. They just left. The doors closed behind them. The council sat in the new silence, a silence filled not with fear of a threat, but with the uneasy awe of something they did not fully understand. They had asked to see warriors. They had seen something beyond warriors. They had seen artists of a dark and peaceful craft. And they knew that the galaxy had just become a more complicated and a more careful place. The whisper was a world of its own. Inside, the lights were a soft, warm white. The air smelled clean like ozone and old paper. The hum of the life support system was a constant, gentle sound. It was a quiet place, a place for thinking. The 5 humans went through their routines. They put their gear away. Each piece of equipment had a specific spot on the wall. They cleaned their tools even though they had not been used much. They wiped down their suits. They did this in silence, but it was a comfortable silence. They had worked together for a long time. Words were not always needed. When everything was stored, they gathered in the small common area. It was just a table and 5 chairs bolted to the floor. Hygiene heated water on a small hot plate. She poured it into 5 simple metal cups. She passed them around. They all drank tea. It was plain barley tea, not fancy. It was what they always drank after a mission on the council station. Things were not quiet. Reports were being written. Discussions were happening in every office. The story was being told and retold. But the humans were already leaving that noise behind. Their ship was moving away from the station, heading toward the jump point that would take them home. Jihoon looked at the data slate Eunkyung had placed on the table. It showed the final mission report. One line glowed softly. Collateral damage, 0. Civilian casualties, 0. Enemy fatalities, 0. Mission status. Success. He took a slow drink of his tea. The after-action report is ready to send, he said. Minsuk nodded, looking out a small viewport at the stars. The Grand Commander did not look happy. He wanted a fight, Taewon said, checking the readings from the ship's engine on his own small screen. We did not give him one. He does not know what to do with that. He will learn, Unkyung said softly. Or he will not. Our job was not to make him happy. Our job was to make the problem go away. Hygiene smiled a little into her cup. The young one, the guard. He looked at the nutrient bar like it was a puzzle. He was a kid, Minsuk said. Scared. He thought he was going to be a hero. We showed him he was just tired. They lapsed back into silence. There was no celebration. There was no backslapping or loud laughter. There was just the quiet satisfaction of a difficult job done well. The tea was warm. The ship was steady. After a while, Ji-hoon spoke again. The council was watching. They saw everything. Unkyung looked at him. What do you think they saw? I think they saw what they were afraid to see, Ji-hoon said. They were afraid we would be monsters. Loud and angry and wild. They think that is what terrifying means. I think they learned something new today. What did they learn? Hygiene asked. They learned that terrifying can be very quiet, Ji-hoon said. He finished his tea. It can be a man who waits for 10 hours without moving. It can be a choice not to pull a trigger. It can be giving a hungry enemy something to eat. They do not know what to do with that kind of power. It does not fit their stories. On the council station, Ambassador Sumin was in her office. She looked at the stars as well. Her screen showed the departing signal of the whisper. She thought about the report she would have to send to Earth. It would not be long. It would say, the objective was secured. The demonstration was successful. The reaction is contemplative fear. That was the goal. Not to make friends. Not to make enemies. To make everyone stop and think. To make them understand that humanity could solve problems in a way no one else could imagine. And that this ability should be respected. Back on the ship, the quiet continued. The team rested. Some slept in their small cabins. Some read. Minsuk cleaned his rifle one more time, taking apart every piece and putting it back together with smooth, practiced hands. It was a form of meditation. They were not heroes in their own minds. They were specialists. They were a tool for a specific job. The galaxy might now see them as mythical creatures, as demons or angels of a new kind of war. But here, in their quiet ship, they were just Ji-hoon, Unkyung, Taewon, Minsuk, and Hygiene. They were tired. They were going home. Ji-hoon sat in the pilot's chair, though the ship was flying itself. He watched the stars streak by as they entered the jump. The light washed over his calm, lined face. He thought about the galaxy full of species who loved big gestures, loud speeches, and grand battles. He thought of how confused they must be. They had just seen a storm pass through without making a sound. They had seen a mountain moved without an earthquake. He allowed himself one small private thought. A thought he would never say out loud. Let them be frightened of our restraint, he thought. It is cheaper than war. And everyone gets to go home. The whisper slid into the swirling blue tunnel of faster-than-light travel. In an instant, the council station, the planet Meridian Prime, and the whole watching galaxy were far, far behind. Ahead was Earth. Ahead was quiet. Ahead was the next mission whenever it would come. The humans did not worry about it. They would be ready. They would be patient. They would watch. And they would, once again, do the job that no one else could even see needed doing. The galaxy had learned a new word for terror today. And the teachers were already gone, leaving only the lesson behind in the silence.